AccuNet Acumatica Tips and Tricks session. Today is part one of a three-part series on how to manipulate and manage your data that is going to be used in an import scenario without having to change the data in the underlying file. If you're watching this, you probably know that Acumatica has a powerful feature that allows you to create records in Acumatica by importing that data from an external file of some sort. So we have a sample file here, and let's assume that this file is an extract from a third-party external system which takes orders from companies to our company, and every so often we get an extract and we get information about the new customers, and we use that to import that into Acumatica. So let's look. I've already created an import scenario, which I call demo import customers, and I've already set up the file to be that file that I showed you just now. So let's go ahead and prepare the data in the import by scenario screen. So it comes in correctly. One of the things I like about preparing first rather than doing a prepare and import is it gives us a chance to check out our data. And in fact, although I knew this was here, if I examine the data here, I see that we have a typo. And this says Safe Credit Onion, but obviously it should be Safe Credit Union. Now, I could go back to our Excel file and change it there, and then save the file and re-import it. But there's a quicker way. I can just come into this field and I can change that to Safe Credit Union. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now that should import with the correct name. So what if there's some other changes we want to make, though? Let's say that there has been a change in company policy, and instead of the default terms of payment being 30 days, the company has decided we're going to require that external companies or customers pay us upon receipt. So there is a term that's already in Acumatica called due upon receipt, or DUR. And so I can do what I did over here with the Safe Credit Union and just go in and change it. But there's a bunch of them here listed, about 20 of them, and I don't feel like having to go into each one and change it. So I am going to do another trick that Acumatica allows us to do. Notice in this middle menu here, there's an option called Replace. So the first thing we have to do is tell it which column that we're going to do the replacements in. In this case, it's the terms column. And the value that's in there that we're looking for is 30D. And we're going to replace that with due upon receipt. Now we can match the case or not. In this case, I've already put in the correct cases, so it doesn't matter whether I check that or not. I'm going to go ahead and replace. Notice it says one was replaced. It did the first one that hadn't already been changed. Remember, we did that one manually. So it changed the first one that still said 30D. So we know it works as expected. So let's go ahead and replace all of them. And now you see that every one of the records has DUR in the credit terms column. So we can close this. Again, we are going to save the data, except before I do that, I'm going to toggle the activation. So I find it's generally good practice to only import one or two records when I'm first doing an import scenario, just to make sure everything is right and we don't get a whole bunch of errors. So we definitely want to do the one that said Safe Credit Union just to make sure it brings in the correct value. And then we'll just do the first one up here. So now I'm going to save the data. And then I'm going to go ahead and import those two active records. So it completed successfully as we had expected. Notice they're now checked as being processed. Let's take a quick look. We go over to the customers page and we search for anyone that starts with C000, and we find two of them. This was the first one in our list, and then this was the Safe Credit Union. Let's take a quick look in there. So it does have the correct name, as we could have seen before. And then if we come into financial, we see that the terms, instead of being 30D, is DUR, due upon receipt. So the changes we made in the data after we already imported it were passed along into Acumatica, even though the underlying file still has the old values. So that's just some quick ways that we can change data that's already been imported without having to mess with the underlying file. So I hope you learned something from this lesson. Stay tuned for the next two tips and tricks coming about managing data in import scenarios. And thank you for listening. And if you have any questions about this or about Acumatica, please feel free to reach out to us.